Hey, this is the one-man gold mine, the one-man enterprise of professional wrestling and all entertainment, Flynn Hendricks. And you better believe when I'm looking for a good podcast to listen to, I go to my own. I go to the I Know You Hear Me podcast hosted by me, Flynn Hendricks. That is such a fresh perspective for how you should look at life, too. I love that. And then when I'm feeling spooky, I go to my other podcast, Tales from the Haunt, where I want my head shoved inside a 15-pound silicone mask. More. I want to have a bucket of sweat coming off me at the end of the night than just Jeff.
Dogs don't lay eggs, Flynn.
I hate you so much.
Talk to other scare actors about what it takes to get into the world of scare acting. So if you're curious about how people became professional wrestlers, actors, prioritized their mental health, became entrepreneurs, avoided burnout, or got into scare acting, you need to go check out I Know You Hear Me and Tales from the Haunt, available on all podcasting platforms. And I know you hear me.
Welcome, everybody, to the PWZ podcast. I am Rick Del Santo, and today I have a very special guest, someone I've been looking forward to today. I know you're laughing, sir, but Maniac, Jimmy Deo. And I got to say, it's just going to be a very interesting conversation. You're somebody I watched on TV, probably in my mid to late teens, I'd have to say, on IWCCW. So how's it going, sir?
You're dating yourself, Rick.
I am. I'm getting up there, man, and trust me, I'm feeling it too. So
I got to tell you something, Rick. This interview I'm going to do with you is probably the first interview I've ever done totally out of character. Okay, you're talking to Jimmy Deo. Okay, anything you got for me? Ask me. Don't hold back.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, thank you so much. Now, I know I grew up watching you in ICW, and I've always enjoyed that product. It's probably one of the first independents. Actually, I'd have to say it's the very first independent professional wrestling outside of WWF, the NWA, AWA, and World Class. And we're going to get into a little bit of World Class, or mentioning their name a little bit at some point. It's probably the first out of all those promotions, the first independent that I came across. So I was just, when I grew up, the first time I saw it, I just remember, and I'm sure you're going to remember this name. I saw the Duke on TV. Yeah. You remember him? Yeah.
Yep.
I just remember seeing him. I can't remember the two wrestlers that were in the ring at the particular time. I was at my grandmother's house on a Sunday morning. I became enthralled with ICW, which later became IWCCW. So It became my favorite promotion. And then sometimes at certain points, it was hard to get on TV where I lived in the New Haven area of Connecticut. And then it would suddenly pop up and then disappear for a little while and then pop up again. So
not to interfere here.
Go ahead.
But I'd say probably about 10, 12 years ago, me and my wife were on vacation, okay, and we were in St. Thomas. And we turned the TV on, and IWCCW was currently on TV.
That's amazing.
And there were tapings that were done from when we did the Hamburg Fieldhouse tapings, 90, 91, 92, 93. I mean, it was kind of impressive. It's like the people there in St. Thomas, right, didn't know that it was filmed 20 years before. You know what I mean? Right. It was just an amazing thing. It's almost like the wrestling, it never ends,
Yeah. I mean, one of the things with that is I constantly go back and watch old ICW and IWCCW footage because there's just something about it. It's legendary footage that I think it's underappreciated, to be honest with you.
Well, Mario and Tommy Savoldis and Angelo poured their heart into this. I mean, this was what they wanted, and I have the utmost respect, for Mario, Tommy, and Angelo. Unfortunately, we lost Angelo not too long ago. But for Mario and Tommy Savoldi, I mean, I have nothing but the utmost respect and admiration for, because when they did something, they did it. They didn't just talk about it. They did it.
That's one thing. Mario, I'm trying to get this guy on the show. Please, Mario, if you hear this, if you see this, come on, man. Respond.
Come on, Mario. Rick's painless so far.
I mean, I just think that it would be a really intriguing interview. I think that I could probably sit down, and the information that guy has, his history.
Yeah, he's a plethora of history.
Look at all the promotions footage that he owns, okay?
Yeah.
Look at the history of wrestling in his family. His father's history, right?
Yep.
His brothers, his cousin. Tommy was his cousin, correct?
Correct.
So look at the history there. We can go on probably forever, I'm guessing, or at least a good amount of time.
And you had Jumping Joe Savoldi, which, when Joe was, in the mid 90s and early 90s, it's like he was like, I don't, other than the fact of his allegiance to his father and his grandfather and everybody and his uncle, I think he was, I think he might have been, if he wouldn't have been loyal to his family, I'm sure he would have moved up fast, because he was definitely, he was an unbelievable athlete.
That's one of the things I've always said, that, because he worked for Bill Watts for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He worked Puerto Rico, obviously with a relationship with the Savoldis, but
sure,
he could have gone further. But I think, like you said, he probably had a certain bit of loyalty to his family, and that's why he never made that move to say WCW, WWF, and took that first step.
Yeah.
Or that next step, rather, excuse me.
Yeah, the next step. But there was a lot of talent back, in the IWCCW days. Like you got, remember Damien Demento? Okay. Mondo Clean.
Yep.
Okay.
I remember him. Yeah.
He went on, you look at Tom Brandy. Okay.
Sal Sincere.
Sincere.
Johnny Gunn, he worked in WCW.
Yeah. Him and Mike Kaluuya must have wrestled themselves 1,000 times for IWCCW.
Yeah. Speaking of which, while you bring that up, tomorrow's episode actually is Mike Kaluuya. I'm interviewing him tomorrow evening. Yeah. Reach out to him.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he and I were able. I thought it was going to be a little rough trying to get him on this show, but it was. I reached out to him and he said absolutely. It's like, that was quick. That was easy. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to mention some of the other IWCCW guests probably throughout the episode that I'm going to have, because you saw that post that I made in the Facebook group, and I got some good positive feedback there. So I got some. I got Mike Sundance coming up. Are you familiar with him at all?
I've heard him. Yep.
Yeah. And I think that he worked, if I remember correctly, I believe that it was Crockett's or something like that.
Yes, he did.
And Mike Kaluuya. And then today I confirmed Mark Mest, from the Mark Mest Brothers. And I know that you worked with him quite a bit.
I actually trained Mark Mest.
You did? Really?
Yeah, I broke him in. He was 18 years old. And,
what about his brother too? Or
his
is
brother.
Just
yeah. And his brother came along like a couple months after that. And, they actually 1995 they actually bought the Dio's Dungeon, the pro wrestling school that I had. They actually bought that from me, and they took it over, and it's still going full blast today.
Okay, I knew that he was still a trainer because I saw that somewhere on social media. I believe that it was his.
The Dio's away, and they made it the Dungeon. Okay, but that all started in my garage when I lived in Blandon, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yep, I bought a wrestling ring off of Tito Torres in Jersey City. Okay. And he told me he had a wrestling ring for sale. And I said, "Where is it?" And he said, "Come up and look at it." Well, we go into this like old building where the water pipes are broken in the ceiling and the water's coming in it. And the electric's not on. We're standing there with flashlights looking at the ring. I said, "What happened?" He said, he said they turned the electric off. And I'm like, well, the water pipes are broke. It was winter, right?
Yeah.
They froze up. So he said, well, you can buy the ring. I said, okay. So we loaded the ring up, brought it back, and that ring to this day is still up at the dungeon. Yeah.
Nothing is rotted or anything like that.
What's that?
Nothing's rotted.
Well,
no,
we have all new boards and stuff in it.
The
metal is still good. But that was funny because I bought that. Actually, I didn't know how we were going to pick it up, so I rented a bread truck. And I remember me and Kim Serafino, who wrestled under the name Mr. Natural for a couple years. We jumped in the bread truck and drove from Reading all the way up to Jersey City, which took us forever because bread trucks don't go fast. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And loaded the ring up and brought it back. And we sat it up in my garage in Blandon. And I was training in it. Okay. And then Dirty Deeds Darren Wise, who is probably one of the best people I've ever met with a microphone. Okay. Come up and we start working together and stuff. And I started wrestling, all over the place, because then we started doing ring rentals. Then it got to the point where setting up the ring and wrestling, then tearing the ring down, it was a lot,
Yeah.
And one of my old friends, unfortunately, who passed away, Ted Petty, if you remember him. Okay. Teddy, he did that for many years, ring rental, and also worked the shows and stuff. And like I said, I have a lot of respect for Mark. I mean, Mark took it and kept going. I mean, and that's, that goes to show you something. You can do anything you want as long as as long as you keep doing it. The only way you're going to lose is quit.
As long as you got the heart. You brought up Ted Petty. I got to tell you, the first time I ever encountered Ted Petty as I guess you can say civilian, an independent show, probably around 95, 96. It was in New London, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. A sport. It was at the New London sportsplex or sports arena, whatever it was. And it was an independent show. Literally, I walked into the bathroom and I'm standing at the stall, and Ted Petty comes in and using the next stall, and he looks at me and says, hello. That was it. He was like the nicest guy. He was like very friendly about it. And he sat there and chatted for a few minutes, man. He was a really nice guy. Super fantastic guy. Yeah. Yeah.
True gentleman. I mean, definitely from the old school. You know what I mean? And that's
absolutely. And I was always thought that the Cheetah Kid gimmick was amazing at that time period, absolutely, when he was a Cheetah Kid. Yeah. And when he was Rocco Rock, I never put that connection together, obviously, until I was a little bit older. And then I was able to put that stuff together, because as a kid, you don't know that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. You mind if I ask you a little bit about your career and your debut? Tell me about your training and who you trained with, or who trained you, I should say. And then I have here that you debuted in 1987, but not like an exact date or anything like that. But
this is bizarre, because I was trained by somebody that I'm not going to mention the name, but they said, give me $500, I'll train you to wrestle. They had no ring, they had nothing. So I'm like, okay. Then I hooked up. Then I was fortunate, because what I did is I hooked up. I thought to myself, I'm heading down to Larry Sharp, to the Monster Factory. They got a ring.
Yeah.
I went there for a tryout. And then right after that, I went up to Gleason's Arena in Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And trained up there with a guy named Bobby Bald Eagle. Okay.
Bobby Bald Eagle. I had his nephew on the show before, Al Farrat, which was also Dancing Wolf from Sioux War Party.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to say that was at that point, that was one of the greatest interviews. That is a hell of a guy right there. I'm telling you.
He's a great guy. That whole family was great.
Yeah, and he had so many great stories, especially when we got to the IWCCW part. He had so many great stories. But anyways, go ahead.
I must have tagged with everybody against the Sioux War Party.
Yeah,
L.A. Gore. Anybody. Actually, in the beginning, when we did that, and I remember when I first broke into it, I was up at Gleason's Arena, and Tommy Dreamer and Taz were up there. And next thing you know, I'm booked on. I became friends with Curly Moe, or Diesel Don, back then. Okay.
I remember him. Yeah.
He's like, hey, we'll tag together. And next thing you know, he said to Johnny said, sure. And then next thing you know, I was tagging with him, and we were against TD and GQ Madison, Tommy Dreamer, and I don't remember
The other guy. Yeah.
You
I don't remember. I remember him, but it's the thing is like did he like fade into obscurity basically?
Yeah. I don't know what happened to him, but
yeah.
I remember that was my first TV match. I think it was Channel 2 in Brooklyn. I mean, it was like a little cable network that probably ran it from like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, wow, this is something. Well, that got me into everything else. The next thing you know, I found my way to Mario and Tommy, and they called one night and out of nowhere, and they said they needed somebody to fill in for a New Jersey Nightmare tag team. Something happened to the one Nightmare, and I think it was the I think they were called the New Jersey Nightmares. Yeah, and I went in and did that, and then after that, just then it was Kutcher's Country Club, and then I ended up getting involved in promoting down here because I had an in with the Hamburg Fieldhouse, because at that time the Hamburg Fieldhouse lay dormant for quite a while. And the fire company up there didn't really want anything to do with professional wrestling because they tried to leave somebody in and they stung them. Okay. But my uncle worked with a guy named Ducky Turner, who they worked together for like 45 years. And my uncle said, ask for Ducky. He's in charge of that. He knows Dennis Degler, who's in charge of that. They're good friends. So next thing you know, we got the field house. Okay. So that was like, you talk about something falling out of the sky on your lap. I mean, that happened because it said dormant and they didn't want nothing to do with it. So then, I did 2 shows up there, and then Mario was like, hey, we got this deal going on with Sports Channel New England.
Yep.
Let's take it to the next level. And I'm like, whoa, let's see what we can do. And there it was. I mean, and it's amazing because that whole era, you had Dreamer, you had Taz, you had all them guys. You know what I mean? I have nothing but the utmost respect for those guys. I say it different now because I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm not the heel, I'm not the face. I'm just Jimmy, right? And I got nothing but the utmost respect for Tommy Dreamer, who I got to talk to last summer, and Taz. I mean, great guys. And God bless them all. I hope they all, are healthy and well.
I do have a question actually from a fan that asked me to ask you. Did you run your own promotion during the 90s?
Yes, I did. I ran IWA Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
That's why if you look at some of the IWCCW TV tapings, if you look at the ring apron, it says IWA, Independent Wrestling Alliance.
Okay, so I've seen some of them on the Savmar network.
Promotions.
Yeah. Yep.
SGM Promotions was the boxing part that George Maliatu, who recently passed away, he ran the boxing. Okay, because at the time, in the late 80s, we had the WBA super middleweight champion, Stevie Little, who upset Michael Nunn over in Europe for the WBA super middleweight championship. Well, actually, what happened is we got Greg Serb, the state athletic commissioner, to allow me and Stevie to do a 3-round exhibition match here in Reading. And it was kind of interesting. I'll tell you what, you step in there with a 100% legitimate boxer, you start looking at different angles to get in there. You know what I mean? It's a unique thing. And we did it for a show here at it used to be the Silo nightclub. And I remember that night. It was 3-round exhibition. And, there Stevie is. I mean, what can you say about the guy? WBA super middleweight champion. I mean, Don King's brother got him into that.
Right.
So, it's amazing. But yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, that is correct. Yes.
All right. I want to thank Anthony Brennan for bringing that question in. He is also in the Facebook group. Yeah, he's got lots of great questions and lots of great information. He remembers more about IWCCW than I probably forget. You know what I mean? So I want to give a huge shout out to Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Tell me about capturing the ICW tag team titles with LA Gore. Was it still ICW at the time?
It was. Or was it just both? It was it was right before the transition. Okay. And I'm trying to think who we beat.
I did have it here. Let me just I could probably bring it up if you
I don't want to sound funny, Rick, but there's been so many.
Oh no, I mean and it was so long ago. I mean, I'm sure you hang on. I'll try to bring it up here. Just bear with me a second.
I think we lost it to the Sioux War Party.
I believe that's correct from what I was able to see. Hang on, I'm trying to close out of this page and try to bring up the. Okay.
Where did L.A. Gore get to?
That's another thing. Is like he's impossible to find, literally.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea. Nobody I know. I because I've always, like I said, when you reached out to me when I posted in the Facebook group, the IWCC Facebook group, I'm always looking for guys. Like I said, I grew up watching IWCCW and I absolutely loved it. And so every so often it's kind of a pleasure. It's kind of awesome to interview guys from IWCCW.
I want to sound funny, Rick, but they're dying off.
What's that?
I said they're dying off. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, it's a strange era. You know what I mean? Let me find. I think I might have. Okay, let me. If you bear with me, just a second. I remember seeing it here somewhere. I think
the match might have took place in Dover, New Hampshire, the Dover Ice Arena.
Okay, so where the hell is it? No, I know I had it yesterday. When I was looking at this, I know I had it yesterday. All right, so nope, I have no clue. No clue where it is. So yeah,
we have to ask the Fountain of Information, see if he knows.
Yeah, I know. The Google machine normally, I had this up here on Cage Match, and that's where I got the information. For some reason, I didn't put the. Was it the Sioux War Party? No, it wasn't. No, Jimmy. Yeah. If you bear with me, just another minute or so.
I think it was two guys, but I don't think they had a name.
Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, now I'm unable to find it. Even though I was able to find it yesterday, for some reason it's driving me crazy trying to find it now. But what was it like working with L.A. Gore though, and teaming up with him?
He was actually good. He was actually a good guy. He was a decent guy. He was alert. He was what was going on. He's very talented. And you know what? It's amazing because he sort of like outside the ring, he sort of kept to himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was, like a bunch of us guys in the locker room, we're all like, who knows, playing, it's like everybody's like,
it was a different era. Let's just say that.
Everybody, nobody was thin skinned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, everybody make fun of everybody. And then, of course, we had Curly Moe come in, and sometimes he had little gastric disturbances. And, I remember, I'm going to tell you something. And God forbid, please, Don, this is all in fun. But we were doing a battle royal, okay? And Don was in it. Of course, Don was going to win it. He weighed 400 and some pounds.
Right.
Okay? And in the middle of the match, I remember Ted Petty going to me. I think Don just in the ring. I said, "You're kidding me." He says, "No, go over there towards the turnbuckle." And man, holy smokes. Literally 3 guys just jumped over the top rope and just called it a night because it was bad. It was really bad. I mean, it was, but you know what? At the end of the day, I remember when I have the letter yet. Don wrote me a letter. It was probably like 1993, 94. And because back then we didn't have email, you know what I mean?
Right.
Wrote me a letter. He said, "Brother, let me tell you something about this business." He said, that's when I don't know if you know it, but he had a part in the movie Cocktail. Curly Moe did.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen that once when it came out, and I never went back and watched it ever again. I mean,
a lot of people don't know this, but if you watch the movie Cocktail, when he's standing in the bar scene in the beginning, the bartender is Diesel Don, Curly Moe. And
I'm gonna have to watch it. That's Tom Cruise and Paul Newman, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he told me, he said, "Jimmy, He said, this business is going to pick you up. It's going to suck you in. And he said, any given time, it'll spit you right out. And he just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going into movies. Said, go ahead.
How long was he in the business for? I just remember him really only from IWCCW. I don't really think that I've seen. I mean, really under that gimmick. I don't. I know he probably wrestled elsewhere as.
Well, he wrestled for me when I first started promoting matches. We did a small show in the Leesport Market and Auction, and we did it with no names. We had just everybody. I mean, everybody that I gathered, that I met from Gleason's Arena, from the Monster Factory. We made a plethora. Ted Petty,
yeah,
made a plethora of talent, and we had 653 people there in a place that really should only hold 400. Okay, and it was a good time. It was a good show, and then the second night, I remember one of the guys who used to wrestle as the name Johnny Rebel. Okay, he said to me, "Hey," he said, "Do you want to get Cactus Jack?" I'm like, I can't. I said, "Where the heck? You have his number? Yeah, give me his number." He said, "Well, tell him I told you to call." So I called him, and he said, "You know what? I'll stop by." He said, "I'm only living up in Long Island," and he was wrestling somewhere down south and driving through. And I remember he pulled in this old car. Okay, this is before Mankind. This is before the whole thing. Okay, when he was just starting to make a name, and he came in to the market, into the hall, the banquet hall. We were having a match, and he did a run-in in the Battle Royal at the end, and people were there like, because he did some WCW stuff at that time, and they were like, "Oh,
he was there.
God,
he was there briefly, and then like went away, and then came back after the Crockett's.
Yes.
They switched from NWA, and then they fully went WCW. Like
Correct.
he was there briefly for like a few months.
In that transition, that's when he did it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he did a couple other shows for me that I promoted, and I'm like, and then he, and then again he got wrapped up. He got tied up with them, and then it was off to And you know what? At the end of the day, I got to tell you something. Mick was super nice. Oh my God, a true gentleman and nice. And I just, I can't say enough good about him. Actually, I tugged with him on one of the shows, and we had Carmine Diaz-Burrito.
Yep, he's still
the creator.
Yeah,
he's around. Yeah, managing us, right?
Yeah,
and we had a good time. But yeah, it was like you said, it was a different time. And I kind of these guys here, as far as the utmost respect, I think the guys that truly built this business are going back the next generation, the Samoans. Okay, you got the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. You've got Freddie Blassie. You got Lou Albano. You got Tony Garea. You got those guys, Bruno Sammartino. Those are the guys that gave wrestling the state that it has today. Then Hulk Hogan just took it, and capitalized off of that. But I think I gotta tell you a quick little story before you can ask me more questions. Sure. I was about 15 or 16 years old, maybe 17, and I was an usher at the Hamburg Fieldhouse. Okay, and Carl Sheets, a young man I went to school with, one of my classmates, said, "Hey, you want to be an usher at the Hamburg Fieldhouse?" Me and my dad do it every third Wednesday. He said, "They give us like $10 and they let us in for free and we get to see the show. All we got to do is seat people." I'm like, yeah, heck, I'm into that, right? So I go up there and I'm like, wow. I mean, there they are. There's, I was there the infamous night when Roddy Piper cracked the pineapple over Jimmy Snuka's head. Okay. And on top of that, I'm standing there, like the people aren't coming in yet. Okay, because it's early. There's just a couple people in line out front, and I have my back towards the door, and all of a sudden, this big hand came and went on my shoulder, and he goes, "Which side to the Heels locker room?" And I'm like, "Holy!" It was Andre the Giant. Okay, he is without a doubt the biggest human being I have ever seen. I mean, his thumb looked like ring baloney. Okay, his hands were that big. I mean, and it was just amazing to see those guys, the Iron Sheik. You got Nikolai Volkoff, who actually over the years became a dear friend. Okay, and unfortunately passed away. And
Right.
I just that's what built the business. I mean, that's what gave it its breakthrough. I mean, and I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what's going to happen. There's rumors flying around on how much truth to it as WWE's being sold.
Before we get into like your career, why don't we just shoot the shit about that? Okay. What's your opinion on that? Because honestly, I don't give two shits, to be honest with you. As long as the independent scene, I don't watch a lot of WWE anymore. I still do. I'm not gonna lie.
If
I'll
this
watch
was 25 years ago,
Yeah.
you'd get a lot different opinion. Because be honest with you, I don't give a shit if the WWF gets sold either, or E, or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, literally,
it doesn't matter to me, because I'll be honest with you, if you look back, way back in those days of the Samoans, okay, the guys that were up there, you could understand, you could believe, okay. You got a little guy who weighs, they say he weighs 225 pounds. Well, I got news for you. He's lucky if he weighs $160, and he really maybe ought to think about, what's going on and the whole psychology with it. And he's taking 55 bumps in the match and getting up like he's freaking Rubber Band Man.
Yeah, that's a problem with that's one of the things that I think is like wrong with the industry today. It's a lot of, and I don't care that they're small guys. You know what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of no selling in the professional wrestling industry.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and these are like high impact maneuvers such as pile drivers, a straight kick to the head, somebody falling off a gigantic ladder. I fall off a ladder, I'm not getting up.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
So, that's one of the things that drives me crazy, because I've been watching wrestling for just about, I'm going to be 47, so probably 40 something years. I discovered I discovered it, I think 1983, 1984. So that's one of the things. It's just like I come from a different era, and mind you, I've never really fully went away from watching it, but there's times I trailed away, but at the same time, it's like it's a lot of different products. It's like these guys are doing maneuvers from when I was a kid watching it. That would put a guy out, and boom.
Sure. He'd be in traction for 8 months. Yeah. You know what I mean? I just don't, and I don't understand why, they have to take it. Well, I think it's too late for the business, to be honest with you. They took it too far.
I get what you're saying.
I think the more cartoonish or the more bizarre that the WWE gets, I think boosts the attendance to the independent level. And I'll tell you why. There's a little promotion down here called Regional Championship Wrestling, RCW, Ray Torres. And I went to that show back April last year. I think we discussed this before. And I said, well, this is the first wrestling show. I did do one cameo appearance for RCW in 2010 when I wrestled Danny Bonaducci. Okay.
Yeah, like the Partridge Family, Danny Partridge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And from Corvette Summer.
Tell me about this. I want to know about Danny Bonaducci.
Yeah, the video is actually on YouTube on RCW, on the RCW Promotions channel. Danny got a bad rap from the media. Okay. Big time. How this happened is I was managing a collector car dealership here in Reading. And Ray, the promoter of RCW, came in, said, Jimmy, would you like to do one? Would you like to come out of retirement for a show? I looked at him and I'm like, Ray, I said, why? He says, just one. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, where's it at? Well, it's right here, Silo Nightclub. I said, I'll do it. I said, okay. I said, better yet, let me make a phone call, see if I can get Danny for you. Danny who? I said, Danny Bonaducci. You're kidding me. I said, no. So I made a call. Danny was living in Philadelphia. Now he moved out on the West Coast because he left YSP. And he was doing the morning YSP life coach, morning talk show.
Gotcha.
Danny came up and did the show. Okay. And it was unbelievable how we did the gimmick, but it was supposed to be me against him. And Danny, I had this guy, unfortunately, he passed away. His name was Ed. He was a friend of my brother-in-law's who looked just like Danny, except he weighed about 100 pounds more. Okay. So everybody wasn't believing that Danny Bonaducci was going to be at the silo. So when we did the match, they announced me, then he announced Danny Bonaducci, and we had him come out and stand in the ring. I mean, if you took his head and his head aside of Danny, it was like split. You know, Danny even said, "That's freaking clever." And the people thought that, wow, they tricked us. This ain't Danny Bonaducci, right? So I grabbed the mic and do my thing. Boy, Danny, I like patted his stomach. I said, "Ooh, a little too much dessert, huh, Danny?" You know, I just got into him and started digging into him. And I had my back towards the crowd, and the real Danny Bonaducci came through the crowd. Came up, got in the ring, and hit me with a chair from behind. And then the people just, they all, you know what? I'm going to tell you something, Rick. If you can go out there for 5-10 minutes and you can take one person in that crowd and you can make them forget about their problems and entertain them. And, you know, somebody had a bad day, it was depressed, and you can entertain them to the point where they go home, you know, not even thinking about it. You did your job. You know what I mean? And it only takes one person to feel that. And it's amazing because professional wrestling is a unique thing. It's good versus evil.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, good always prevails. Okay. But it also takes, you know, it's just an amazing thing. But my theory was, if I can take one person in that crowd and maybe stop them from going home and, you know, beating somebody up or something, you know, they go out of there thinking, boy, that guy, you know, what a jerk he was. And then buy a ticket to come back the next time to see the jerk. Okay. And you did your job. I mean, that's an amazing thing. And I got like a lot of satisfaction out of that. It's like, you know what? Yeah, I spent 95% of my life as a heel. Okay. But I remember we were somewhere in West Virginia. Okay. And we had a ring set up, and it was an outdoor fair. And I think it was one of Dick Karakoff's, Neil Superior's dad, who unfortunately passed. It was kind of unique because the match, I remember I went out and I always grabbed the microphone, and there was this big burly biker guy sitting with a vest on with his girlfriend in the front row, right? And he had tattoos all over his arm. I have tattoos too, but I mean, he was like, you know, sitting there, and I'm like, wow. Did you bring your sister to the wrestling match? Says, oh, you shut up. You know, he goes, I'm like, wow, you got some nice ink there. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I said, what's that say? I love mom. Wow, that's nice. Yeah, I love mom. I said, what's the other arm say? And he goes like this. Oh, I love mom, but dad kisses better. Wow. You know, then I did the thing. I said, you know, after I was on that side of the ring, I went to the other side of the ring. Now you got to understand, we're in West Virginia. Okay. And I say, what has five teeth and 20 feet? And they're like, huh? I don't know. I said, come on now, you can answer that. What is 5 feet and 20? What has 5 teeth and 20 feet? I don't know. I said, the front row. I mean, some of the stuff that I came up with was like, you know, I come back after the match and the guys are like, where do you come up with this? I have no clue. It just flows. Okay. But I will tell you, one time, Tom Brandy and me were wrestling at the Fairground Square Mall here. And it was sponsored by the mall, and we had the ring set up in the mall, and there was 1,500 people there. It was jammed. Okay. During our match, Tom Brandy's trunks split right up the butt, and he had nothing on under him. Okay. He never went commando after that. Okay. I picked him up when I found out they were split. I picked him up at a fireman's carry and just kept turning him around. And I swear, there were women there that were throwing stuff. Like I I heard the referee told me that there were panties being thrown in the ring at him, but I just took him everything he owned that his mother left him be born with was hanging out, and I'm just swinging him around. Matter of fact, I when I talked to him last time, we sort of reminiscent about that. So you remember my pants split? I'm like, yeah. I said, I think there was a lot of unwanted pregnancies that night. It's good times. You know what I mean? It's good times. And like I said, there's locker room stories that are phenomenal. I mean, just I at the end of the day, I'm just a boy that went to Fleetwood High School, lived in Bland. You know what I mean? This is my opportunity to see things that, and believe me, I saw that you normally wouldn't see. Like I said, I always looked at it if I could make one person smile or laugh, that they'd forget about their problems. I did my job.
One of the things I want to ask you about, now you just mentioned, where was that? What company was that? If you don't mind me asking.
Which one?
The Tom Brandy that you were just
when
referring
his pants
to.
split. That was the IWA.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
the
Independent Wrestling Alliance.
I have a question here from April of 1992. National Wrestling League and South Atlantic Pro did a joint show where you wrestled Tom Brandy. What are your memories of, if you remember that, and working for South Atlantic Pro? And do you know who was the promoter of South Atlantic Pro at that time? I know they switched a bunch of promoters in their short existence, which I thought was a completely underrated company. I'm surprised it didn't last longer.
Yeah. I remember.
They were a company that were really, when Crockett sold to Turner and was becoming WCW, they ended up buying up a lot of the TV time in the Carolinas, in the Mid-Atlantic area, rather. So they literally were trying to replace the Mid-Atlantic wrestling in that area, or you know what I mean? I thought it was a great promotion. I got the TV up here for a short bit, and then remembered the Savoldis would air some of that footage on their shows over the years. Years later, I thought it was a phenomenal approach. There's a lot of guys there that would go on to fame, and I'm going to ask you about a couple of them at some point throughout this interview. So, what are your memories of working? Do you know who the promoter was? Was it Frank Ducey or Paul Jones at the time? Greg Price, maybe? Sorry.
I think it was Paul Jones.
Okay.
I think, but I think, it's funny because I think the guy that used to always book me was Greg. But
who eventually ended up buying it, I think buying out Paul Jones.
It was I knew of both them guys, but I think Paul Jones might have been the one that contacted me initially. Okay. And my contact through that was all done through my Mario connection and Johnny Rod's connection.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And I got that 2 years ago when they had the Hamburg Fieldhouse, Legends of Fieldhouse fanfare. I was a guest there for a couple hours, and I got to see Johnny Rods for the first time in a long time. And what a guy. And it's amazing because he was sitting there at the table, and I walked over. I said to him, "Do you remember me?" And he stood up. He said, "Jimmy Deo." I'm like, "Yeah." And he gave me a hug. He said, "Come back here." And I'm like, again, what I mean? It was back then, it was a brotherhood, it was a true, you talk about, it didn't need no union. It was unionized. I mean, and
it was a fraternity, basically, everybody was for each other,
everybody had each other's backs. It's a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful time.
I've had numerous students of his on this podcast, and next month I have another. PJ Savage. I don't know if you've ever heard of him at all.
I've heard of him. Okay? Yeah. But like I said, I've been out of the mix for quite a while. And just recently, like I said, started doing the color commentating for RCW.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good talent on the independent. Actually, I personally think, that is my personal opinion. This isn't Rick's opinion, this is mine. But I think there's better talent right now in the independent level than there is in the WWE.
Let me talk about this. Now, mind you, I'm going to agree with you. Okay. I am here in the Northeast. You're still New England based guy in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yep.
We have phenomenal talent here. Mind you, I'm not going to say that the WWE or AEW doesn't have amazing rosters, but the independent talent that is out there that's going to say, I don't know, I'm going to mention the biggest, some of the biggest promotions that I could think of in the Boston, Connecticut area, Maine, whether it be Limitless, Beyond, obviously Northeast Wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. There's some of the most amazing talent out there, literally right now in the New England area. They can put on better shows than you're going to see on television on Mondays and Wednesdays.
You know what? I said this in December, the last show of last year that the RCW ran. It was a standing room only show. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow. And, I made the remark to Ray at the end of the night. I said, you should have made everybody leave at intermission and pay $20 to get back in because they got $100 worth of entertainment. I mean, and not a single soul left, not feeling that they were entertained tonight.
That's an amazing thing on the independent circuit because it's like people don't realize it. You don't have to spend $40, $60, $150 or into the thousands for some of the bigger shows. For tickets, you can spend.
You know what the neat part is?
Anywhere from $10 to $20 for an independent show right in your backyard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good stuff. Yep. Yeah. And and the unique thing about it is there wasn't a single light bulb broken. Okay. Nobody bleeding all over everybody. Okay.
Oh, I get you. Yeah.
And no cheap heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And it was just amazing what the business. I mean, and Ray told me, so you got to, when he first talked to me back before April and tried to get me to come to the show, he said, Ray, it's all the same. I don't, no, come look at this. He said, this is old school. This is the stuff back when I used to walk. He used to walk the guys to the ring when we did the TV tapings up at Hamburg Fieldhouse with Mario. Yeah. And you can see him, and he said, no, this is like you used to do. I'm like, you know what? I went out there and you know what? I was pretty proud of that. I'm like, wow. You took up all that old school stuff and you repackaged it and polished it and made it good. Yeah. I mean, I was just totally impressed. And there's a lot of really strong independent wrestlers out there that are awesome. I mean, totally awesome. And it's just like I said, there's a big gray area right now with what's going to happen with the WWE. If it gets sold and if it doesn't work, I see the independents growing into territories.
The independents since before COVID, I have to say, were on fire. If you, as the kids say, I was watching a lot of the independents because let me tell you, just like I was out of professional wrestling for the first time. I divorced my first wife. I didn't watch particularly for probably 2-3 years. It was meeting my second wife and her son being into WWE that got me back into professional wrestling, I guess. And then, so I started going I ran into Paul Roma in a gas station, actually. Yeah. So he invited me down to his school. And I have to say that I was like, wow, this is so freaking great. I missed this. You know what I mean? It was just something good. And I was just like, but as I'm trying to, I guess, get into it again, I'm looking up stuff on the internet. The internets were starting to come on fire prior to COVID. You know what I mean? It's like there's all these great independent groups, some that I've heard of, some that have been around for a little while, and then COVID happened to shut things down. Now we're post-COVID. I don't want to say post-COVID, but whatever it's called at this time. You know what I mean? I don't want to be too...
Just rebrand it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just like there's so many great independents out there that they're all rising to the top. And it's just a lot of people. How many times you watch AEW or WWE and a lot of like look in one corner of the room? I went to a WWE event. I went to Survivor Series, okay? And not last year, but the year before. Mm-hmm. With a couple of friends, they asked me literally 2 days before. So I was like, all right, whatever. They found cheap tickets. So I went up there to Brooklyn. And so why not? I got to tell you, it's the most boring show I've ever been to in my life. That's one thing. And there was a lot of empty seats there. Yeah. So that's speaking volumes right there. It's supposed to be the
camera, though.
What's that?
You won't see the empty seats in the TV camera.
Not necessarily. No, you won't. You're right. They play with those cameras. That's why they have the hard cam sitting in one
Sure.
section, and they focus
You can switch
literally
back and forth, and
exactly. And same thing with AEW. The AEW. So, I'm going to ask you about a little bit about AEW later. So, well, let's get back on track as far as your career. I was interested. Yeah, I asked you about the South Atlantic Pro. You teamed with Mondo Clean against the Bushwhackers.
Yes.
We
must have done that match 20, 30 times.
Really?
Oh, I think that was like
as you were saying, Mondo Clean was Damian Demento in WWE. He made his name in IWCCW, really. And then wasn't he only in the business for a few short months before going to WWE, which I find incredible.
He was a standout right away.
Yeah.
I mean, when I remember when Mario brought him in, and I'm like, wow, okay, this guy's got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you see guys in the locker room, like, okay, good luck, guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, okay, maybe you should have tried refereeing. You know what I mean, or something. You know, but you know, and then you got, you know, he came in, and I was like, this is impressive. You know what I mean? Then I saw him work a little bit in the afternoon before the show took place, right? I'm like, wow, okay. But again, heck of a nice guy. I don't think he has a good taste for this. What it is, it's like Don Zaleski or Diesel Don Curly Moe said to me. He said, "Remember, this business it'll take you in, it'll chew you up, swallow you, then spit you out." You know, and that's exactly what it does. But you know, he was definitely a unique person. I mean, great guy, fun to tag with. The interviews sometimes I had to bite my lip because I was laughing because he's like, "Bushwhackers," and I'm like, you know,
he wasn't really around that long though, right? I mean, between his independent career and then I guess his WWE career, he was only there.
I would be willing to bet he was with Mario and them guys probably a year. He was in, boom, and that quick gone. I mean, he probably had I don't know for sure, but I'd say he probably had 3-4 years in before he went up. You know what I mean? And but like I said, he was a hell of a nice guy. I'm actually, thanks to social media, in contact with him quite a bit.
Oh, he's out there. Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a real great guy. And
yeah.
There's a lot of people. That's why I hide my friends list on Facebook, because there's a lot of guys in there, and you know, there's still some privacy, and they want their private lives and stuff.
Yeah, I get you. I know, because I have a podcast, and trying to find certain people on social media is difficult. You know, so I eventually give up. Anyways, teaming up with Morgus the Maniac.
Oh my God, Morgus!
And you took on the Mest Brothers in 1993. So tell me about the Mest Brothers. I know before we went live, before we started to hit the record button, you told me a little bit about your relationship with those guys.
Actually, I opened Dio's Dungeon and started training guys here in Reading. And then in 1995, that's when I formed, I was a partner with PCW, Pennsylvania Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
And then I sold the dungeon, Dio's Dungeon, to Mark and Troy. And it's still going today. And this is now 28 years later. And it's still going. And that was an interesting transition. Troy, Mark, let's start with him because he's the first guy in. Mark was very talented. Okay.
He's a big guy.
He's a large guy. He was very good. We brought him out. We did like a farmer gimmick. It wasn't really a gimmick because he does have a farm. Okay.
That's what
a huge farm. Okay. He's the real deal. And then, he just 18 years old. Like, wow. Matter of fact, NWL, I think it was NWL. We did one down at some fair. There's a video on YouTube where I'm wrestling him. And I think that might've been his third match or something like that. And he's actually, they're great guys. They got a great little school. They got you know, a good following, and they do well, and I'm proud of them. At the end of the day, like I said, if I always thought if there was one person I could make them laugh or forget about their problems, guess what? It was all worth it. Now, they bought the school from me, and they just ran with it, and they took it to a level that I never seen coming. And
Yeah.
It's good fun. I mean,
I see that Mark still does like seminars and
Yep.
things like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
like,
he's coming up in Jersey somewhere.
yeah, I did see that. Of course, like I said earlier, I believe I said this in the beginning of the podcast that he is coming up in February here on this podcast. So
Oh, good.
keep an eye out, people, that if you remember the Mest Brothers.
Yeah.
So let's see. You and Ellie Gore took on the Sioux War Party. I know we talked briefly about that. Let's hear
Let
memories
me tell
about
you
the
something
Sioux
about
War
the Sioux
Party.
War Party. They don't win. Okay. I don't.
No?
I think no. I don't know how those guys. I think they have 3 lungs. Okay. Because they used to move all the time, and then they were doing their little dancing around the ring. I'm like, I remember one time I said to one of them, I said, you know what? You make me tired just watching you. And they were good guys. They were really good guys. Actually, the one of them I'm friends on Facebook with under his legal name, but I don't know what happened to his tag partner. But they're good again. Good, strong, nice.
One of them came on. Eventually, went on to be dances with Dudley and ECW, and the other one, I don't know what happened to him. Like I said, I had the other guy, Dancing Wolf, as a previous guest, so he is still active today under the name Al Farrat, and he's kind of like a Sheik type, the original Sheik type gimmick.
Yes, I remember that now. Yes, okay.
I do have him under his shoot name on my Facebook. I only remember the last name. I don't remember the first name. So, excuse me. This is kind of an obscure one. You ready?
You go ahead.
You took on the Deadly Dutchman to a no contest.
Dick Warnick. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about
Deadly
this. I do remember him. I might be the only guy that actually remembers this guy.
Dick, or the Deadly Dutchman.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the toughest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And he was also one of the funniest, okay? Because outside the ring, he was funny. I mean, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
In the ring, he just like, he'd say, if you throw me into the ropes and you clothesline me, make sure you wrap it up around my neck. And I'm like, I'll do whatever you want as long as it's okay with you. You know what I mean? And he was just tough. I mean, he was tough. And I was introduced to him by Dirty Deeds Darren Weiss because they were friends, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best. I don't know why he's not somewhere, doing some kind of mic, because the WWE doesn't have anybody that can talk like that anymore. They don't have
anybody. Let me
the days, it's gone. It's like it's almost like they forgot what they're creating. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's be honest with you. Let's be honest, okay? We're a little bit from an older generation. They have to have a certain look according to, what they're trying to produce. They're trying to produce to a younger audience. Look at the people that they can have the tattoos. They got to have the funny haircut. They got to dress a certain way. It's all stuff that I'm uninterested in. The guy Corey Graves that's on Monday Night Raw is very uninteresting, not very entertaining, whatever. Michael Cole has been played out. The only guy that I really entertain, Jerry the King Lawler, but he's been around for 50 years or what have you. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys there. I'm just like, God, this guy sucks. It makes me mute my damn television. And honestly, as I was going to mention this before, it was like, I do record their programs each and every week. I fast forward through about 90% of them.
Yeah. Well, I see these interviews and it's like,
there's no personality. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. It's like, I remember the one time we did the show at the Hamburg Fieldhouse. I was tagging with the Brooklyn Brawler and we wrestled Tommy Dreamer and somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think it was that. Yeah, I think that I could be wrong, but the whole thing was we had Chris Candido in a garbage can and we had a janitor roll him out to the ring. This is 4 matches before and roll the can under the ring. And Chris got under the ring and stayed under the ring until our match. And then he came out from underneath the ring and, did a screw finish, right? And the people went freaking wild. Okay. And I remember the interview afterwards. The Brooklyn Brawler says, "Hey, Dio, everybody says we needed help." I said, "You know what, Brawler? I didn't need no help. When I was born, I sort of popped right out." It's like, just little stuff. But today you watch it and it's like, yeah, guess what? I'm going to kick your butt. Yeah. Wow. Okay, good. That's convincing. I mean, why do you think The Rock why do you think The Rock is where he's
at? Because he went to the next level, man, because he was able to go to the next level because of his, he might not be the world's greatest professional wrestler. In fact, I don't think he's a good wrestler at all. It's the way that he was able to transition with his.
Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Austin could work and talk. Okay. If you watch his stuff in USWA, Steve Williams, Stunning Steve Austin. That guy could work prior, and then, he came into WWE, and then it just fucking, pardon my language, clicked. Yeah, just clicked.
And if you be honest with you, the wrestling WWE died when Stone Cold was out and The Rock was out. It went away. It's just amazing because they could get up in the ring and again entertain people, and they grabbed your attention, and that's you got to have the hook. I used to call it.
Absolutely.
They don't have a hook. They don't even have a handle. You know what I mean? It's just
they have as far as top guys now, I think Kevin Owens is a really great talent, but it's just people aren't latching on in a mainstream sense.
Yeah. And you know what I mean? The political wheel too. I think keeping him oppressed, you know what I mean? And not controlling the talent, you know what I'm saying? Not giving full creative reign.
We're living in the age of cancel culture. So everybody's got to, be careful of what they say, be careful of what they do. Yeah.
It's okay. Back then, Don Zaleski, Curly Mo. "I'm fat and I know it." And he says, "And you're ugly. And guess what? I can lose weight and you'll still be ugly."
People would cry about that today.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a lawsuit. It's like or something.
That's what it's like. I try to think of it. It's like I'm pretty open politically, and I know, like I said, we don't talk politics here, but it's like everybody cries today over everything. Yeah. No matter what. It's got me to turn around and just be like, fuck this politics shit. Yeah. I just can't handle it anymore. It's just everybody. Anyways, I don't want to get too far into it, but yeah. It's like the last 10 years is like the entire world has just completely changed, and it's hard to sit through sometimes. Yeah,
it is what it is.
All right, so tell me about teaming with Max Crimson, taking on Jimmy Powers and Johnny Gunn, aka Tom Brandy.
Yeah, so that was a good match. We had a lot of, again, anytime I had to work with Tom Brandy. He was fantastic. And Max was one of the guys that I had trained and brought into the business, and he tugged with me for a while. Actually, we were the original Salt and Battery with Lou Albano.
Yeah,
and we started with them, and then we did a couple. I remember it seems like the only people we ever wrestled were the Heavenly Bodies, Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard.
I was going to ask you about those guys. What was it like wrestling Tom Pritchard? Tom Pritchard is a legend, and obviously Jimmy Del Rey is great too.
I don't think they're human. Okay.
No,
and I don't think they breathe. Okay, because they you have to be 100% alert and dead on when they're in the ring with you, because they are fast. Okay, and they fly. And they're not small. Okay.
No.
But they're very good. Okay. And I enjoyed, out of, I think, all the matches that I've ever done, I think I enjoyed working them the most. And then trying not to laugh at Lou Albano at ringside.
When was this? Because Lou Albano was involved. So I'm trying to put that in lineup.
96.
And that wasn't IWCCW. That was PCW, correct?
PCW, yes.
Yeah, so he was still kind of getting involved here and there a little bit before. Yeah.
You see, my partner in the PCW was an attorney and had some kind of connection with somebody up in Stanford, because we had Jeff Jarrett, we had we did a show where I don't know why he did it in that small of a place, but he had Jarrett, he had Coco Beware, he had the Bushwhackers, he had endless. I mean, there must have been 8 major players on the show, and there's somewhere on the internet there's a poster of it.
Okay.
Jeff Jarrett and all them other the Heavenly Bodies, and it's like, but it was a different time. And like I said, he must have had some kind of an in up at Titan, because I remember they left us use the WWF logo and the posters and everything.
Really?
And we did in the Silo nightclub, which was a little like overkill because it only held 1,000 people.
It's actually big it's big for an indie though.
Oh yeah. Well, I got to tell you this: the first TV taping I did with Mario and Tommy up at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, we had 1,900. And that's the one. It's a lot of the videos on the Tony Atlas against Greg Hunter Valentine was the main event. 1,962 people there. Now, we were also backed by the Steelworkers Union, okay? Because they used to buy tickets, like hundreds of tickets at a time, okay? And that's why if you look at the IWCC Hamburg Fieldhouse stuff, there's a huge crowd, okay? There's 1,962 people there. I think our lowest we had was 1,200 with them. But you got to understand, we were also locally here on TV every week. And all that TV was nothing but a commercial to get people up to the Hamburg Fieldhouse. And it worked. But it was a different time. You can't do it today. It's unduplicable. Is that even a word? I lost your audio.
Sorry, no, but you just made it a word. Sorry.
Yeah, is that even a word? Okay, I guess we got to add that one to the dictionary.
There you go. But yeah, dude. I mean, it's incredible. Like, certain indies would just draw. You could draw 1,000 people. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then others, it's on. I mean, I guess today you can, provided you had the right talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need the right talent, but it's.
Yeah. I go to indies here. I could draw anywhere. I could go to an indie here where there'd be anywhere from 12 people to 600 people. So go figure. Depending on who's on the card.
One thing I got to tell you, Tommy Savoldis told me one time. He said, "Let me tell you something, kid." He used to call everybody kid. He said, "Kid." He said, "You wrestle. If you can wrestle in front of 5,000 people, you can wrestle in front of 5 people. The only thing is, you're going to have to be better when you wrestle in front of 5 people." And
yeah,
and he was right. And he also told me a lot of little inside stuff. Whatever you do, don't screw up the start and don't screw up the finish of the match. Everything else is relevant. I love Tommy and Mario. They're great.
I think this is the last IWCCW question. Well, as far as like matches go, you worked with a tag team. You and Max Crimson worked with a tag team called the Hardcore Generation. Could not find any information on this tag team, the Hardcore Generation. Is there anything that you remember about these guys?
It left as quick as it came.
Yeah, so nothing.
It just didn't have a hook.
Yeah. Do you know who they were? At least no. I couldn't find a name. No.
I remember them. They came in and they were gone. And
yeah,
it was. I don't know.
The name is probably maybe a year too early from what I'm thinking, because that hardcore stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Probably took off around 95, 96, where it exploded.
Yeah, I think Sandman was the one that started that.
Yeah.
The ECW, the Kane, and and then the whole, that was the ECW era.
Yeah, it was just about to. I mean, they had been in business probably 2 years, maybe, as Eastern Championship Wrestling, and I think just took over in. Yeah. No, maybe 3. I'm sorry, excuse me, because I think, and then I think in '95, that's when they became Extreme. Did you ever get a chance to work there when it was the NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling? Because I know that
Championship Wrestling back in the very beginning. I remember. Oh, you just had him on, Don Drake, DC Mad Dog Drake.
Yeah,
DC Mad Dog.
I think Drake. I was wondering if he would actually come on as a guest here, if he would.
Oh, wasn't he on yet?
No, he hasn't not been on yet.
I think you should bring him on.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was running. I think him and Todd Gordon at the time or something. It was Eastern Championship Wrestling,
yeah.
and they had this, and he booked me on a bunch of shows. Drake did, and he had me all over the place. He had me out, and I remember out in Easton at the theater out there, and then all over Jersey, that was when that morphed into the Extreme Championship Wrestling over time. It was, like I said, in 2000 I went met up with Tommy Dreamer and a bunch of guys because we were gonna he wanted to give me, and Balls Mahoney was alive yet with him, and they wanted to do something, and they were gonna talk to me about doing something with them, and then like I said, in September of 2000 I was ready to hang it up. I mean,
Right.
I'm tired. This is enough. I probably would have been a lot better, probably for a longer period of time, if I wasn't training guys, because the only way you train is to do it. Okay. When you're training guys and then going and doing matches, yet it was double the toll. Like 2 years, November, it was 2 years. I had both my knees replaced. Okay. And walking like a human. And all my organs are okay. That's what I'm worried about.
That's what matters, really.
Yeah. Everything else is replaceable.
Right.
But I just, like I said, I always, look back on the time, and that whole group of guys, all the way from A to Z, they were all great guys. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about anybody. Nothing. I mean, a couple promoters were scumbags. I remember we did a show in Vineland, New Jersey for Sally Starr, who had a child Saturday morning talk show on here called My Gal Sally Starr, and went down there and did the show, and she wrote me a check, and it was a bad check. Never heard from her. It was just a long story. Guys writing bad checks all over the place,
and that's something. And I don't want to say it's something out of the norm in the independent circuit, but it's something that you read about quite a bit when you're reading about professional wrestling or independent professional wrestling, that there's a lot of people that bring people in and write bad checks, it seems, here and there. Have you had a lot of experiences with that?
That was common. That was common. You had a list of guys that you only get cash.
Yeah.
And I can remember one episode, we had a guy write a bad check, and we were up in Hoboken at the street fair, and guy was in the crowd, and I don't want to incriminate anybody, but they got the guy back in the locker room and stuck his head in the toilet with the money, and it was just something. It was incredible. It was just to see the guy's face when he pulled it out of there. He had toilet paper stuck to his face and brown stuff on his face. It was ugly.
I was going to say, I hope there wasn't anything else, but
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was because somebody just got done in there and they did it on purpose. They said, "Don't flush. We're bringing him in." Okay, here we go.
Let me ask you. I know this may be somewhat of an odd question. I'm not sure, but were you there for the merger between World Class and ICW, which they titled it IWCCW. I spoke to Kevin Monero.
I was with them at the merger. Yeah. And I know at that point, was it Kevin Von Erich came aboard with us?
He according to him, he said that he went there. Now I spoke to him not in an interview, but he literally
for ICW before.
Yeah, he had worked 4 matches for the IWCCW, the initial IWCCW tapings. Said that he ended up never getting paid for that and never getting paid for the merger as well, which I find,
I'll be honest with you. I never had a problem financially with Mario Tommy, and I dealt with them on the promotion end of it, not the here's $500, kid. I mean the big end, and I never had a problem with Mario, Tommy, Angelo, Joe, the whole crew. Nothing, nothing at all. And Again, you know what? A lot of it could be from spilled milk, crying from spilled milk.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an awkward merger to begin with, world class.
Mhm.
You know, it is an
Well,
awkward thing.
I think Mario looked at it as it was a way to collect more
Maybe
footage,
takes, yeah,
get
maybe collect footage, take
in
some
another
towns. Yeah.
territory and take some
Yeah.
talent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, WWE really owns the majority of the footage. There's very little that they don't own, but some of it that they don't is probably, from what I see, according to the Savmar network, they do own some world class. And I think it's like the later period
Yes, it
stuff.
is.
You
Yes,
know
I
what I
believe
mean?
so.
Because
Yes.
I think that probably the Savoldis own probably like the world class Intuit turning into USWA, probably
Yeah.
era footage. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like
Yep.
I believe it's 1990. I could be completely wrong. I could be off by a year, maybe. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing because, like I said, I you know, and I really don't have nothing bad to say about any of that back in those
Mhm.
days, right?
Mhm.
But I'll be honest with you, I think that I'll say it. I might as well say it. I think the WWE sucks, but that's my
I'm
opinion.
glad you said that.
Clear that up.
I haven't like really been interested since probably, I guess, what they call the ruthless aggression era, probably since Benoit died. Okay, and that will be in Benoit fiasco.
Yep.
I don't really want to get too far into that because it's just like after that, I just kind of stepped away from WWE, and I really like followed mostly. You know, there was Ring of Honor at one point, and a lot of the indies that were based here in Connecticut. So
Yep.
I just couldn't follow it, and the only other secondary promotion was TNA/Impact, and in 2010 they did a whole storyline. They were promoting October 10th, 2010, 10.
Yeah.
And it literally turned into, I turned it on because it was like they've been hyping this for months, and turned into Eric Bischoff and Hogan doing a promo for an entire hour. I just shut the shit off and just gave up on that too. So
Yeah, I know they
you know.
you know it you know. Hey, what can I say? You know,
Well, it
other
is,
people wins. You know.
yeah. Do you mind if I ask you individually about certain guys that were regulars for
Yeah.
the promotion? So,
Sure. Go ahead.
all right, I'm going to shoot off a list here. Tell me about Gino Caruso. What you think about Gino?
Gino, great guy, nice
Yeah.
worker. You know, he's one of us. You know, he's one of the crew, so to speak.
Yeah. What about? Did you ever have a chance to work with the Metal Maniac at all?
Yeah, I did. He's
That
hey
doesn't.
brother, hey brother, hey brother.
I interviewed him and it went 4 hours. That's all I got to say. So
Every time you book Jimmy Snuka, you got the Metal Maniac. You know,
I saw
so-
them work. I saw them work the North Haven Fair in North Haven, Connecticut. For did you know who Tommy Jeanette is from Northeast Championship
Yeah.
Wrestling?
Mhm. Yeah.
They worked. So they ran the North Haven Fair every year for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And I saw them. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Headline one of the fairs there.
Yeah.
And you know, at the time I thought it was great, but then after seeing the 200 times after that, so
I know.
you know,
It's
yeah.
funny because we had brought we had brought Snuka in a couple times, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I bring?" And he used his real name. I said, "Nah, bring him with." I said, "But I'm not letting him work you. We're going to put him with somebody else." You know what I mean? Because he always wanted to work Jimmy. You know, because Jimmy was always on the top of the card.
Yeah.
And, but
You
he was a
probably
nice
get paid.
guy.
You probably get paid enough, you know, more or whatever.
He
When
was
I interviewed him, he was very, very nice. But
no, he was a nice guy.
when I
Just
tried
funny.
to, it like I said, we started at 10 o'clock at night and it went until 2 o'clock in the morning. So I mean, you know, I'm in Connecticut, he's in Hawaii, so that's one thing. So,
Yeah.
all right. So tell me about Jimmy Snuka. You just brought him up, so I want to know
Nice.
about that.
Let me tell you something about Jimmy. He was probably, in all the times that I met him, worked with him, he worked for us. He was without a doubt probably one of the softest I don't even know what to tell you because
He
he
was
was
just very kind. I thought any time that I encountered him,
he was a even back when I was a kid and I
Yeah.
seen him at the Hamburg Field House, and he was always a gentleman. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation was with his past. I don't care. I'm just going to judge him on how he treated me
Mhm.
and how I see him treat people. He was always nice. I never saw him get tore up about anything. I mean,
Yeah.
he was always like, I always admired him, because he was, that way. And,
Yeah.
it's a shame he passed, because it was only what,
He got real sick. Yeah, I think it's been a few
Yeah, he
years. I
had
think it's been
stomach cancer. Yeah,
3 or 4 years ago, and yeah, he got real sick.
about 4 years.
Um, like I said, all that stuff that came out about him, and I'm sure you probably saw on Dark Side of the Ring or what have you. Um, and even before that, it was kind of known, stuff. But anytime I encountered him, I always thought he was like a sweetheart. You know what I mean? He was just a very kind
The
man.
media can twist stuff into their angle for their gain. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
that's one
That's how
thing
they.
that's irritating.
That's how they get ratings and make money.
Now, just think about this. If everybody went out and planted sunflowers and they were all pretty and nice, nobody'd buy the newspaper. Nobody'd tune into the TV show. Okay.
Yep.
Dirt sells. Bottom line.
Yeah.
And if you can't find the dirt, make the dirt.
Let me ask you about Tito Santana.
A nice guy. I've only met him like 3-4 times.
Yeah.
And they were through Mario's stuff, but he was a nice guy always. Nice,
Yeah.
like he was gotta tell you that because we did a show at the Hamburg Field House. Virgil flew into Philadelphia Airport. They were on strike, okay, and our show was sponsored by the Steelworkers Union. And somehow he crossed the picket line somewhere down there, and they went after him, okay. And he came up here to the field house, and he said, "I see these Steelworkers banners hanging all over here. What is this?" I said, "It's the sponsor, the Steelworkers Union." Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! It was just Virgil. Wow.
I encountered him. It's got to be 2 years ago. 2 years ago at an independent show. We're all waiting to get in. He's just walking around. Now, I'm sure you've heard the lonely Virgil stories where he just signs stuff and tries to get money.
Yeah, he's after he signs it. Give me $10.
Yeah. He just sat there literally having a conversation with everybody. He didn't, he wasn't pulling any of that crap. He went inside afterwards and he just sat at his table and signed autographs with his agent. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it was an agent thing that put him in check, but he was the nicest guy in the world. He was sat outside prior to the show telling some great stories about his, somebody was wearing like what was the tag team with the Boss Man and Akeem, Colossal Connection?
Yeah,
was that
yeah.
Somebody was wearing one of those shirts, like a bootleg shirt of that, and he just sat there talking about how great guys they were, and he just kept telling great stories, So he was a really fun guy to talk to.
He was nice. He's just It's funny when he came into Fieldhouse. He said, "This is sponsored by a union." Oh my God! Like, you're 50 minutes away. They didn't follow you.
Yeah, right. We got. I know we talked briefly about this guy before, Tommy Dreamer. What are your memories of working with him?
Oh, what a great guy. I mean,
yeah.
He also did, I don't know if you know this, but in the IWCCW, he was also El Diablo.
Really? That was him?
Yeah, the Mexican heavyweight champion. I beat him, and I want to know why I didn't get the Mexican heavyweight belt. Because technically, I beat him for the title, but I never got the Mexican heavyweight belt. So technically, I was also, to my resume, the Mexican heavyweight champion.
Right.
They never been to Mexico.
They never presented you with the belt either.
No,
right?
I get. You know what? I might want to bring that up to Mario.
There you go. Tell him that there's a podcast looking for him too. On top of it,
we had a little feud going in IWCCW. It was kind of entertaining.
Yeah. And I do remember the El Diablo character. He was kind of in and out, I guess you could say. so
Yeah.
he wasn't there a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, Dreamer, Taz, that whole crew, like I said, I love Taz. Taz is a great guy.
IWCCW really gave birth to a lot of guys that ended up becoming legends in the 1990s. Like you said, there was Taz, there was like you just said, Tommy Dreamer. There was so many great guys. Guido wrestled there, I believe. Chris Candido. Guido wrestled there as James Stone or Damian Stone, one or the other. I know he teamed with Caruso at one point.
Let me tell you a little something about Damian Stone.
Yeah,
he's a tough guy. We had a guy that was doing 360s off the top rope, and they had a little bit of an accident up in Cutchers, and he caught Damian Stone in the jaw with his knee and busted his jaw. And I mean, and I gotta tell you something, the guy that did it, he quit. That was his last time. He said he's done. Damian Stone didn't. He said, "Why are you quitting?" He said, I messed you up. He says, and they had to operate on Damian and put him back together and stuff. I had the pleasure of seeing him 2 years ago up at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, the Legends of the Fieldhouse, and he's a good guy. He's old school. You know what I mean? He's the brick and mortar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a guy I ran into him at ECW shows like meet and greets and stuff like that back in the day. But I did have a chance to see him work in Tommy Jeanette's Northeast Championship Wrestling.
Great work.
Yeah, he was around for a very long time prior to getting the fame in ECW. It's kind of amazing. He was, like you said, he was just a legit guy. He was really good.
He had a lot of meat and bones. You know what I mean? He was a solid wrestler. He was a good guy too. And
let's see. What about the Savoldis? Mario, Joe, Angelo.
I love the whole family. I've had so many good experiences with Mario, Tommy, and Joe and Angelo. Whether it was in Dover, New Hampshire, at the Dover Ice Arena, Cutchers Country Club, Hamburg Fieldhouse, and the 500 places in between where they used to run. I swear, if they'd find a cornfield somewhere, you could set a ring up, they'd want to show. But anyway.
Well, speaking of which, they ran car dealerships here in Connecticut, in the town that I work in or live in now.
Yeah, that was just Tony Rumble too.
Yeah, Tony Rumble. I'm going to ask you about Tony soon, and his CWA, and he ran NWA New England for a little bit, and he would book for IWCCW.
Yep.
They all three of those mentioned would run in a Toyota dealership here in Wallingford, Connecticut. And tell me about Tony Rumble, and if you ever remember any of those shows in Wallingford, or I believe that they ran in Meriden as well, which is like 5 minutes from there. You just go down the road, take a right, and I'm in Meriden.
I remember doing Meriden. Okay.
Yeah.
Tony Rumble was, like he had if he didn't like you, he had an edge for you. Okay?
Really?
I never saw the edge, but I saw the edge put on others, and probably because they probably tried to play a game with him or something.
Right.
Because he didn't like the fast hustle. You know what I mean? He just, and I loved the guy. I mean, I had him manage Tony Atlas all the time. And that's when he used to come out with his helmet and the Boston Bad Boy. Remember that?
Yeah, just at Boston, right across.
Boston, yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, that he was always he was one of, like I said, he was one of the crew. I mean, he was a good guy. I mean, he'd come down. I mean, even if we had the show at night and in the afternoon, we had all the guys in it, like the Olivet Boys and Girls Club here in Reading. He'd come down. He'd come down early. I said, "You want a room?" "No, I'm bringing Tony with." And they'd meet over to Olivet's Boy, and those kids would come in there, and they'd love that, And of course, they'd go home and they'd beg their parents to get a ticket for the show the night, But
I think one of the 2 times I've seen Tony, I think I've seen him with Tony. Tony Rumble with Tony Atlas. One of the times at the car dealership, and I remember seeing his Century Wrestling Alliance. I don't know who he was with, but I remember that time. At that point, I was kind of still pretty much a mark at that time, younger. And I saw
Alliance, CWA.
Yeah. When I saw Tony Rumble walk through that curtain, And I was like, oh my God, it's Tony Rumble. Like, because I had seen him on TV for God knows how many years. You know what I
Great
mean?
guy. I mean, great guy. Like I said, old school guy. You know?
Yeah. I've heard a lot of great things from guys that I do work with now that had the chance to work with him, and maybe he mentored them in some way or another. And, you know, nobody has anything negative to say about him.
No.
Yeah. Had you ever worked with Tony Ulysses at all?
No.
No. Okay. I guess that's I don't know. I don't got much else. Is there anything else you want to throw out there?
Other than like I said, I saw some of the. Oh yeah, I want to throw a name out there.
Sure.
Watch. I'm independent. His name is John Wes.
Okay.
Okay, you might want to Google it or look it up on Facebook.
How do you spell the last name?
WES, John Wes.
Okay.
He is probably one of the most impressive. It's almost like if Al Snow bred with Rob Van Dam.
Oh, okay. That's got to be something interesting because both are great athletes.
He caught my attention the first time back in April, and I thought to myself, you know what? This is just lucky. You know what I mean? It's just, it was just a good match for him. And then I went to the next match, and I'm like, whoa, this ain't luck. This guy's got it. And he's got that look. He wrestles as the outlaw John Wes. I
found him on Facebook right now as we're speaking. So this guy looks great. I mean, yeah, you're right. I'm going to keep an eye on this guy.
Yeah, and wait till you see him work. I mean, it's amazing because, when you sit there and you do color commentating, you get to see everything raw. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm like, this guy's got something, and he's wrestling. He's pretty much a mainstay down here at RCW. He's actually got their belt. But back when I first saw him the first time, I'm like, I said something to Ray, Ray Torres, the promoter. I said, Ray, this guy's there's just something about him that's going to work. And I got to tell you one story before we leave.
Sure.
I was working at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, okay, as an usher, seating people. I was a teenager. Hulk Hogan just came into the WWE. WWF.
Is that 1980, 1979, around there?
Yeah. Yep. I was a senior in high school. And Vince McMahon Sr. was standing there. And Joe McHugh, the oldest, he was the oldest active ring announcer in the world, who I think he ring announced up to 88 years old. Okay.
I think I know who you're referring to. I've been watching the old episodes of Championship Wrestling from 1980 on.
And if you look at some of
just got uploaded
IWCCW stuff from Hamburg Fieldhouse,
okay,
Q was the ring announcer, along with Jeff Herman, who was a guy who was a friend of mine, who Joe took under his wing and trained and become a ring announcer, trained him the right way to do it. Well, anyway, I was standing there, and Vince Sr. said to Joe McHugh, Joe, you see that guy over there in the robe? Yeah. He said, that's Terry Bollea. I'm going to make him the next superstar. And I sat there at that age, and I'm like, okay, there it is, Hulk Hogan. And, it's just amazing. It's just totally amazing. I'm a firm believer that Vince McMahon can make anybody he wants a superstar. Okay.
There's been some failures here and there. But not many. You know what I mean? But that Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan thing. It's like I said. I've been watching some of the recent episodes of Championship Wrestling that have been uploaded to their network, the Peacock, and a lot of it's centered around Bruno and Larry Zbyszko, the feud that's brewing, which. One of the all-time greatest feuds, right?
Oh, that was awesome.
It's awesome to watch because I've been watching one episode a night to try to get, because I love Bruno, and I'm a huge Larry Zbyszko fan as well.
Yeah, remember when when Arnold Skolin used to come with Zbyszko to the ring, right?
I know he came with Backlund. I don't remember Zbyszko.
He was with somebody else too.
I'm trying to remember.
But I can remember up at the Hamburg Fieldhouse in that time, in the late 70s,
Right.
Arnold Skaaland came to the ring with, but it wasn't Bruno. There was somebody else that he managed at that time.
Yeah, I can't think of. I mean, because like I said, some of that is before my time, so I go back and watch a lot of that footage.
Just to see, just to run the talent past it was there. Baron Miguel Cicluna.
Yes.
Irish Cannonball Pat Barrett. Okay. Haystacks Calhoun. Ivan Putski. Okay. The Blackjacks, Mulligan and Lanza.
Mm-hmm.
George Animal Steel. Okay. Bugsy McGraw. Okay.
Right.
These are guys, the Samoans, Lou Albano, the Grand Wizard, Freddie Blassie. These are the guys that these guys had character.
I think the era that I'm watching, the 1980, I think it's like the tail end of the Grand Wizard's stay there. So I think, who did I see him with last night? Jeez, I can't even think. Crap.
Hey, here's a name. Don the Rock Morocco.
Legend. The Magnificent Morocco. Yeah.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. I think at that time, I don't think he became The Rock until 1988 or 87, something like that.
Yeah.
So when he got paired up with Superstar Graham.
Yes. And then they had Adrian Adonis. And they had, oh my God, it was such a, you know what? Wrestling was such a good time then. It was just unbelievable. I mean,
I prefer a lot of the wrestling I grew up with, man. I mean, as opposed to, and that's why I go back and watch things like the IWCCW or the AWA World Class. You know what I mean? Not necessarily. I mean, even the WWF at that time period, they had some great talent, even from like 86, 87. I go back because those seem to be, to me, those 86 and 87 seems to be, those years are just awesome. They're on fire, it seems.
They're great. I mean, it was like I said, it was a different time. And will it ever be created? If it's done right, but in the direction that it's going, I don't know. Like
There's too much. Go ahead. Sorry.
There's too many. I call them trash matches. Okay.
Too many cooks in the kitchen. There's the production is overdone. It's oversaturated. It's watered down. You're not getting. You're trying to please a certain crowd that's just not, in my opinion, they're not there.
They actually ought to take the E out of WWE because
I can't stand it. No, it's not entertaining. Yeah, but
it's not entertaining no more. Yeah. And you know what? It's just I was fortunate because I lived, I was born and raised in the Fleetwood Reading area, which is 35 minutes from Allentown, and which is where the Samoans came out of and everybody else. You know what I mean?
They grew. I just moved out of Hamden, Connecticut, into Wallingford, Connecticut. If you know that the Samoans lived in Hamden for years and years and years, and that's where they were well known for living in Hamden. So they had a ring right in their backyard, and that's where everybody. That was like a well-known story if you were a Hamden resident. And I lived there up until August of last year, and just moved over to Wallingford. So
we'll tell you something. They're gifted athletes. That's the bottom line. And how many Samoans do you know that are not? Okay.
Yeah.
Think about it.
You're right about that. Yeah.
You're just genetically, I mean, it's amazing. Afa and Sika at 340 pounds could hit you in the side of the head that if you didn't see it coming, it's like teeing off on the ninth hole. You know what I mean? And they just like, but it's just, it's amazing. And, it's like I said, the respect's there. I mean, and, I just, a lot of guys don't, they forget, what happens is a lot of get, and I'll say this as a close for you. Okay.
Sure.
A lot of guys get wrapped up into this to the point where they see themselves as something they're not. Okay. Then what happens is you got to remember this. You got to give those people in those seats what they want to see. Not what you think you want to see. Okay. And that's where a lot of wrestling promoters failed. They book who they like. You don't book who you like. You book who those people that are paying their hard-earned money for, who they like. Okay. And on top of that, what happens is these guys don't know when to let their gimmicks go. Okay. Yeah. And I understand the kayfabe thing. I understand everything down to the the whole 9 yards to that, to the language, to everything. Okay. But there's a time and place when you got a little kid, a 5-year-old kid coming up with a piece of paper and pen. You don't shove it out of his hands and walk away. Okay. Because that's the guy, you might be 21, 22 years old now wrestling, but that 6-year-old kid one day is going to be 20. Okay. And hopefully you're there where he can say, hey, I saw him wrestle when I was a little kid. And you know what? Nothing makes me, in a way, it makes me feel old, but in a way, I like it. We go into the mall and somebody comes up, says, hey, they say to their grandson who's like 10, when I was your age, I was watching him on, and it makes it all worthwhile. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, everybody in this business is a human. Okay.
Yeah.
And, it just, what really hurts me is a lot of these guys don't let go of their gimmick when they're around situations like that. If I put it this way, if I said the stuff I said during a and sometimes it got pretty vulgar. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty bad. I mean, a lot of stuff you can't say today, you can't say it anywhere. Okay.
Wow.
But
yeah,
the thing is, like I said, and I'll say it one more time, if you just took one person and you made them forget about their problems, okay, I did my job. And that's kind of interesting, but
Could I bring up one thing that you kind of got me interested in asking you one question?
Yeah.
So you're talking about guys letting go of their character, I guess, outside of the business or outside of wrestling.
Yep.
So somebody like, I'm sure you're familiar with MJF, right?
Who?
MJF in All Elite Wrestling. He's basically their world champion now. He keeps character inside, outside, yada, yada, yada. As he's walking outside to the arena, he's always getting cheered. And he's supposed to be the top heel in the business right now. So is Roman Reigns in WWE. But the thing with the two of them is, I'm going to tell you my opinion shortly after I say what I say. They're getting cheered as if they're guys like Hogan, Warrior, Flair, name any top babyface in the business. My personal opinion, that kind of wipes away their heel status if they're getting cheered the way that they're getting cheered by the entire arena. I want your opinion on that. My statement that's my opinion. So
if you had somebody that's new, and this is how I always looked at it, breaking in the business, let's throw them out there and see how the crowd receives them.
Right.
The crowd doesn't like them. You know what I mean? Let's go with a heel. What these guys are doing is they're trying to be something they're not. Okay.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they're just puppets for the pencil for the organization. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, or is it by their choice, or is it by the booker's choice? You know what I mean? So you don't know the politics behind it. But I always, in the beginning, when we train somebody, it's like you can tell in the beginning, and then they always think they're going to be something else, And I never pictured Mark Mest as a heel, but he did it. You know what I mean? But I always pictured him as the country boy with bib overalls and, you know what I mean? A little hoedowning going on and making people be entertained, letting them be entertained. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't understand why, like what you just said. You have a valid point. They're basically, as far as the crowd's concerned, they're faces.
Well, that's one of the things that I got into an argument with another podcast during one of their live streams that they're talking about these guys being as popular. And I'm like, they're not heels anymore. Once the crowd, the thousands of people in the arena start cheering you as if you're an Austin. I mean, even to my opinion, Austin was a heel for as long as he can be. People were still cheering him though. And the same thing with Hogan when he turned heel. People went crazy, started cheering him again.
Blurred lines.
Yeah.
And that's the development that they're creating. It's going to end up the line that separates heel and babyface is starting to fade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's not good because, like I said in the beginning, pro wrestling was built. If you look back on when pro wrestling started, it was called hooking.
Yes.
You know that. You ever
Yes.
do the research on it?
Absolutely. I do research daily. I'm on the internet because
They set it up at a
yeah.
fair and they called
Yeah.
it hooking. They had two guys fight and then the winner challenged somebody in the crowd who was a prop. Okay. And they bring him up. Okay. And you know, if you pro wrestling is set up this way, just like it was back then. There's a good guy and a bad guy. The good guy is the guy sitting in the crowd because he's the everyday Joe.
Right.
Bad guy is the guy who just beat that guy up. You know what I mean? So pro wrestling is set up, was born with heel versus face, good versus evil. And at the end of the day, good always prevails, okay, over evil. And that's what makes it what it is. With this blurred line going in play here, where's it going to go? I don't know. I don't know. Time will tell. But all I can say is the more crappier that stuff gets, the more people I see at independent shows. So, hey, more power to them.
I'm telling you, hashtag support independent wrestling. So
you ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. Yeah, you want your money's worth. You go to see an independent show.
Go to your local shows because I love going to, I've been to in the last probably 4 years. I'm going to go for 4 years. I've been to more independent shows than I've been to any shows, any wrestling shows as a whole in my entire life in the last 4 years.
And there's good, strong independent promotions.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's good stuff. You got down here in PA, you got Dino Sena, the WWWA. You got Samu doing his stuff. You got these guys.
Is that the WXW with, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, and then Yep. And then you got some guys out in Western PA running stuff too.
Yep.
These are all good quality shows. I mean, this is the heartbeat of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's always been a hotbed is Pennsylvania as well.
And guess what? It's always been there. Okay. WCW came and went.
Yep.
Okay. How many? I don't know what TNA's doing. Okay. I don't care either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these come and go. But at the end of the day, your independents are always there. You know what I mean? And that, it's neat because you can go to a fire company, a fair or whatever, see an independent show. You can go in there. You can get up here in PA, you can get a hot dog for $1.50, a soda for $1. You know what I mean? And you go to a freaking overinflated freaking bullshit show. Okay. It's going to cost you a family of 4 is going to cost you $160 to get in.
That's at minimum, dude. That's at minimum.
Yeah. And then you got to eat.
Yes.
Okay. Then you're going to spend another $100. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, I literally have been going to like on a regular basis. I've gone in for the last 4 years. I've been going to independent wrestling shows, probably every other week or every week, depending on the month, etc.
Yep.
As opposed to the WWE events, I spend less. I can get my entire say if my two sons come up and visit, and I bring my stepson and my other son, the 5 of us, maybe 6 of us, I can spend $25 to get all of us in. Think about that, and then I can sit there and buy some snacks. I spend less than $100, unless I'm buying any kind of merch, 8x10s, t-shirts, all that stuff.
Isn't that something?
It's amazing because if I go to a WWE event, I'm at least spending, like you said, minimum 160 something on tickets, and I could be spending $300 to $400 to $500 just on one evening of a regular TV taping if I'm buying t-shirts and all that other crap.
Yeah. And you know what? You're ready for this one. When I worked at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, ticket prices were $2 general, okay, and $4 reserved.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
That's, yeah. So, Jimmy, why don't you tell me anything about what's going on with you today, or do you have anything coming up that you want to speak about in the professional wrestling world? Or
you know what? We're talking about an independent, and I like I said, I like the RCW promotion down here at Ray Torres runs.
Yep.
He's got some really good, solid talent. Runs a good show, entertaining. doesn't have to break 50 light bulbs over people, or throw them in the thumbtacks and light them on fire and everything else. The guys, Mr. Ooh La La, you ever hear of him?
Oh, he wrestles for ECWA, correct?
Yeah.
I watched. They have a weekly web series that they air.
He's a staple in RCW.
Yeah, he's been around for quite some time. Yeah,
he's also a good friend. He's a nice guy.
Yeah,
and he's a good worker. He's entertaining. You got like Ricky Rocks. You got a bunch of them guys that are really good. John West stands way out. I think all in all, I just love the RCW. Like I said, I didn't want to go. I figured I will go take in a wrestling show because this is why I did it back in April. I have an autistic great nephew. And I said, why don't I take him to a wrestling show? And I didn't want to take him in front of something like with 10,000 people and have him get shook up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get you. The Birdsboro Fire Company to see the RCW show. And when I came in, Ray said, you got to sit up in the front. And he said, well, we get to see. And you know what was amazing? He said to me, Uncle Jimmy, I didn't know you were famous. And I thought it was so cute, right? But now he like goes, he's, every show that I've done 4 or 5 shows for Ray doing color commentating since. He goes with and he sits in the front row and I sit there and watch him and he's fine. I mean, and you know what? He's 12, okay? And he'll be 13. And just to see him, just have a good time is, to me, I'll do whatever. I'll do anything I can for you, Ray. You know what I mean? Because and all the guys now start to know him. So at intermission, when everybody's signing autographs, they're like, "Hey, Devontae," he's like, I mean, like I said, if you can help somebody, that's why. You know what? I used to always like doing shows at the Olivet's Boys and Girls Club. Okay, because we used to do little. Now, when I had Dio's Dungeon, Mark used to do them. Troy. We did them just for the Olivet's Boys and Girls Club's members, just for the kids. Tom Brady used to come up. Michael Lou used to come up, right? And we do them. And you know what? Those kids, inner city kids that don't have any reason or means, not reasons, but means to get out. You know what I mean? They come to that night. They didn't get in trouble. They saw something, they go home about, you know what I mean? And you know what? At the end of the day, it makes it all worthwhile,
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I don't like where the WWE is going today, and
something about a connection in the independent world between the fans and the product. You could approach these guys exactly, and
they're
it's
touchable, they're seeable, they're talk. You can talk to them, and that's where I can remember at Hamburg Fieldhouse, the heels used to sit back in the corner in the locker room, outside the locker room, and then they'd go over for a soda at intermission, and you could talk to them. They'd even talk to the Iron Sheik, who I think is one of the most hilarious freaking people ever was around. A little vulgar, right? But
just a
he's
little
funny. He's just a little vulgar. He's a lot. But he makes me laugh every time he says something. It was like when he did this couple shows with Mario. He's like, "You don't think I'm smart? I'll show you how smart I am." I'm like, shh. And like I said, I he's funny as hell. That's all I can say. And another guy I wanted to mention too, that Nikolai Volkoff.
Let me ask you about him, because I know he worked for the Savoldis late, like really late in their career as far as IWCCW went, and he died just a few years ago, right? Was it just a
couple years ago? Yeah, he used to. Oh, it's funny because when my father passed away in '92, right when we're getting to the height of the IWCCW stuff. And every time Nikolai would come to a match, he'd want to hang out with my dad, because
really,
and when my dad passed away in '92, he actually sent us a card, and he sent a card to my mom, And then every time I saw him up until 2000, every time I saw him, he'd say, "How's your mom doing? Is she okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "I miss your dad." It was fun seeing him, and he never forgot that. He actually remembered my mom's name and my dad's name. And he was he was a nice guy, super nice guy. He met my daughter when she was, gosh, she was young. She was like 3,
Mhm.
and he met my daughter, and he was like, she thought he was really cool, and he's he used to be really good at card tricks and stuff. And he
Yeah.
was showing her card tricks and little tricks he used to do and stuff. Well, you don't play poker with Nikolai. That was law 1. Don't play poker with Nikolai. Don't let him talk you into it. Tommy Savoldis told me that. You don't play cards with Nikolai. And I'm like, okay. But
Did you get sucked in? You ever get sucked in?
no,
No.
I don't gamble. I'm not a gambler.
Me neither.
I don't, I don't gamble. If I drink 3 beers a month, that's a good month for the beer company. I'll tell you, the life that I led when I was wrestling
Yeah.
and what I'm now is like
It's
people,
opposite, right?
people see, and it's like, wow. And then it's funny because now I'm about 279 pounds, and they're like, actually, it was a little less than that, but I gained some weight. Marrying an Italian wife doesn't, help anything in the food department. But yeah,
I was brought up in an Italian household. My dad straight off the boat, Italy. So yes, I know. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, if you don't eat, something's wrong with you.
Well, they always yelled at you, eat,
Yeah.
eat.
Are you sick? Are you
I
sick?
was very thin as a teenager, but as I got up,
Yeah.
pretty fucking fat, if you ask me. But,
my I had a laugh because we gosh, when we were kids, people. Well, I grew up, like I said, my graduating class was Fleetwood High School 50.
yeah.
We would have had more, but there were so many unwanted pregnancies in the senior year. It was pathetic. Okay, one girl was on child number 2. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so anyway, then I wind the clock ahead, and I just look at what it was, and we go out, we see somebody, and they look at me, and they're like, "Wow, you were a lot bigger. Yeah, it was 340 pounds then, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not as tall as what I thought you were." Now my biggest line is, "No shit, I'm 60 years old." You know what I mean? It's like, I'll be 61 February. Matter of fact, me and Ric Flair have the same birthday.
Really?
Yeah, February 25th. Yeah.
Did you watch that documentary that came out on Peacock, the new one?
Not yet, but I'm gonna.
I highly recommend it. It was really good. My
Yeah.
wife is not a wrestling fan whatsoever. She'll sit there and watch a 2-3 hour documentary on any wrestler that comes out because she just likes documentaries, but she will not sit and watch a wrestling show with me. So
Ric Flair is probably one of my favorite.
It's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no hands down. I mean, probably only second to Bruno, maybe. Honestly, I love Bruno.
I think Bruno might be up there, but I think Flair is right close.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really say. Buddy Rogers was really up there too. Me, for growing up in the 80s, I literally kind of studied the history a lot. I read a lot. I traded tapes a lot back in the day. So I always sat back and watched footage that was at least 20 or 30 years older than my era.
Did you ever see the interview with Dusty Rhodes, and when he talks about Ric Flair, where he goes, "Mr. Ric Flair, for every one of them long brown silky skin women you had, I 3-4 times."
I'm a huge Dusty fan, man. So it's like Dusty was a legend too, man.
Nobody can talk like that no more.
No.
Nobody can.
He came out in blonde hair and stuff like that with an afro pick in his freaking hair. Just walked out to the yeah. It's just, the guy was incredible, man.
Yeah. One of the guys that back in, just as I was selling the wrestling school to Troy and Mark Mest, okay.
Yep.
A young guy came in to the wrestling school. This is when I was with PCW, okay. And he came in and he said he wants to learn to wrestle and this and that. Steve Corino.
Yeah, I read that actually today when I was putting some notes together. I read that they had a hand in training Steve.
Yep. What happened is it was at the position where it was being transferred,
Mhm.
and they, and I said, here's your first student. As I said, Steve Corino. And Steve's a nice guy. Steve's
Yeah.
a nice guy.
I
And
got to see him during his ECW run.
yeah, we had a big battle.
I saw him
Dusty
wrestle.
back and forth.
I saw him wrestle Dusty actually in Danbury, Connecticut, in a bull rope match.
Yeah, they did
which
that match all over the place.
I was sitting front row. That was live on ECW pay-per-view. I can't remember the name of it, but I sat there literally, had front row seats to that. I remember that night in particular because I remember Raven getting thrown into the steel barrier, and the barrier literally flew right into my right knee. Like it hurt like hell.
We called Steve. What did I call him in the beginning? Steve Christie Corino. That's what we call. That's the name that I gave him right in the beginning. Steve Christie Corino, and then he used it, and then went on. I mean, then Mest took it over, and he was that was pretty interesting though.
Have you ever seen Steve's son Colby? He just reports
Colby when he was about 5, maybe younger.
Well, the rumors are circulating he just signed with WWE and he's going to the NXT brand.
That could be. Could be.
He just left the NWA. I guess his contract expired. Yeah.
Steve was natural.
Yeah, I thought Steve was great. I saw him in when he was working for Ring of Honor wrestle Homicide.
Yeah,
in a match, and those two bled like freaking crazy. Fairfield, Connecticut, at the Sacred Heart University, and those two. I mean, I remember Homicide taking a plastic fork and just stabbing Steve's head, and I just remember blood being everywhere.
Yeah, you know what though? Yeah. Steve had so much talent; he didn't have to do that.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And one of the things is he was going through the gimmick because he was the king of old school. This was my favorite gimmick, the King of Old School by Steve Corino. He would the ring announcer would have to list off every title that he had won, that he had held previously, stop in the middle, take a sip of water because the title list was so long. So I just thought that was great. It was a beautiful gimmick. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. Like I said, it was definitely it was a time. But like I said, you got to always remember where you came from and who you are. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm just a little kid from Blandon, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you for coming here today, and I hope that you'll come back again at some point. If not, to talk your wrestling career, just to shoot the shit and talk about professional wrestling in general as a whole.
Well, we only touched about 5% of what actually.
It sounded like we got a lot in, though.
We got a lot. Yeah. Like I said, I just I enjoyed coming on your show, and I think that your podcast here, the PWZ Network, is a great thing, and I looking forward to more. If you need any more people to come on this, I have contacts with some people that would probably make you pretty interesting.
I'm always interested, so you know how to find me, of course, right?
You got it.
All right. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Rick.